Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. As of today, we are just a few days out from the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, and so because of that, I wanted to share some maybe crazy predictions I have for the movie. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you the whole plot and break down beat by beat, but I do want to talk about some select things that I'm predicting. My friends and I have made bingo boards, and so this is mine. And maybe after the movie, we'll come back together and talk about what I got wrong, what I got right. Hopefully, more right than wrong, but we'll see. So let's go right into it with, I'm just going to go left to right, top to bottom. So we've got an X-23 slash Laura cameo. This is, of course, the clone slash daughter of Wolverine that appeared in Logan, played by Daphne Keane. And for this, I'm keeping it very vague, not to spoil it, but if you've seen the trailer, we know. But I had this on here before that trailer, so I'm keeping it. Yeah, I think she'll appear. I would love for her to have a part in the movie. Like I say cameo, what I'm envisioning is that we're going to get X-Men galore. I'm hoping for at least a fight scene with her. It would be really cool if she showed up in the full X-23, Wolverine Laura costume. I don't know if she will, but that's my hope for that first prediction. Second off, we've got Logan wears the helmet. Of course, he is going to wear the helmet. We've seen it in promotional art, the Five Below posters, the popcorn buckets, things like that. We have seen the helmet, but they have not shown it to us in the trailer. And so I'm very curious to see how it gets executed in the movie. It could go one of two ways. It could literally be just one quick cheap gag and he doesn't wear it at all. He could wear it for the entire third act. That's kind of maybe my guess, is that I think it's going to be a gag where we see in the trailer that the TVA dresses Wade up in his new Deadpool costume. So my current prediction is that the TVA is going to give Wolverine his full suit too. And he's gonna, no, I'm not wearing the stupid helmet. And Deadpool's gonna harass him the whole movie about it. And then he is going to, for the third act, wear it for the final fight. As like a hoorah, look, I'm in this now. But we'll see. Again, this one's very open and vague of just at some point in the movie he puts that helmet on. Next up, we've got that the TVA are actually bad. We've seen in the trailer that the TVA from Loki does show up and they, abduct Logan. And they take him, they abduct Wade and Logan and they're using them for something. I think they're being pointed at Cassandra Nova as like, she's a problem. She's going to destroy reality. But really, I'm assuming we're going to get that third act twist where actually the TVA are the bad guys. But maybe not. Who knows? All right, next up, I have big final fight with the Fox X-Men and villains. So what I mean by this is that we are going to have almost an endgame big splash page fight where we get classic X-Men villains like Ian McKellen's Magneto or Mystique played by Jennifer Lawrence or the other actress. We're going to get Toad. We're going to get Pyro. We're going to get the Juggernaut. Like, we're going to get all the classic movie X-Men villains, and then we're going to get all of the, maybe a mix of the new and old cast of the X-Men, get some of the younger ones, but then you've got like Patrick Stewart's Xavier, and you've got Halle Berry's Storm, but then maybe you have the younger Beast, and the younger Scott, slash I'm really hoping for James Marsden Cyclops, but at some point, slash assuming the third act, they're going to have a big old fight where it's the action figures smashing together, I also have various cameos listed on this. Like, for example, right here, I have Blake Lively as Lady Deadpool. We've seen Lady Deadpool is in the trailer. She's wearing her mask. We don't know who she's played by. There have been jokes about what if it's just Ryan Reynolds again, and that would be funny. But I also think this movie isn't going to pass up on the cameos. Like having Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds' wife, play the variant of Lady Deadpool. And so, just a fun one. Next, going back all the way to the left, we've got Deadpool and Logan accidentally travel to one of the non-MCU universes. So we know that they're going to be portal hopping. We've seen that in the trailer. And we know they're going to be doing some timey-wimey alternate dimension, Loki stuff with the TVA and things like that, trying to find like the perfect Wolverine to save the world and stuff like that. And so I am predicting that at some point they are going to accidentally, like they're going to be intending to like, let's go get the Avengers, like let's go be in the MCU. And they're going to accidentally drop themselves into like the 2005 Fantastic Four or Sam Raimi Spider-Man or the classic X-Men universe, things like that. One of those, the old Incredible Hulk TV show. Like, it's going to be just a quick little, like, oh, wow, look at that. And Wade will make a reference of, like, oh, it's the old bad one or whatever. And they'll move on. This next one is a big and maybe a crazy one. But this is Wolverine versus Hulk. I say this because Wolverine versus Hulk has always been an interesting matchup in the comics and the animated shows and movies. You've got the unstoppable rage monster versus the little unkillable man. And so, for this one, the reason I say this is because people have pointed out on Twitter that the clip they released previously of the Wolverine versus Sabretooth fight, the dialogue where Deadpool says people have waited like a century for this fight or whatever, the exact line he says, people have pointed out that that sounds ADR, which obviously most of Deadpool's lines are ADR. He's wearing a mask. If you recorded it, it would sound like this. So some people are questioning if maybe that scene doesn't actually belong in the Sabretooth fight scene. And so there have been crazy rumors / theories of what if the Hulk is in this movie somehow, and we finally get, for Hugh Jackman's swan song, his fight with Hulk. Do I think it's going to happen? Not 100%, but it would. I'm putting it on here as my crazy entry. Next up, very simple one. I've got the X-Men theme plays. The MCU has been using that X-Men theme, the da-na-na-na-na-na. They've been using that like crazy. They use it in Miss Marvel. They use it in Multiverse of Madness. And so I'm fully expecting they're going to play it here. And Deadpool's going to acknowledge it. He's going to be, oh, look, they're playing the song again. That must really mean we're X-Men now. And so, yeah, the theme is definitely going to play. That was a gimme. I have here, do you know what happens to a toad? This is, of course, referring to Storm's iconic line of, do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? Same thing that happens to everything else. And so I think, again, Deadpool is going to make a reference to that joke where we've seen Toad is in the trailers. And I think it's going to be something like Deadpool and Toad are fighting and Deadpool gets like the upper hand and he makes a, do you know what happens to a toad? When it gets shot in the head. Same thing that happens to everything else. Something like that along the lines. Next up, I have a story prediction, which kind of goes along with that. The TVA are actually bad, but in that I've got Cassandra Nova was pruned because she's not Charles. So if you're not familiar with Cassandra Nova, I don't want to get too into it because I don't want to spoil anything that might happen in the movie. But very vague thing is she's Charles' evil twin sister in the comics. I don't think they're going to go with the twin sister route this time. I think they're just going to say she's a variant of Charles, and that's why she was pruned, because she's a girl, not the prime like we've seen before, kind of like how Sylvie was pruned. Then I've got a Kevin Feige cameo. How can he not? Kevin Feige is running all of Marvel now at this point. He was the head of Marvel Studios. Now he runs everything Marvel. And I can't imagine Deadpool making his MCU debut in this movie without poking fun at Kevin. If not Kevin showing up himself. I wouldn't be surprised if Deadpool somehow, similar to She-Hulk in her finale of her series, where Deadpool ends up plopped into the Marvel offices and he's like, hey Kevin, put me in the MCU. But speaking of that, my next one is that Deadpool lands in the MCU without Logan. And I say this because it is time. This is assumedly the swan song for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. He'll probably show up in Secret Wars. I keep saying swan song, but I think this is his last like big role. I think he'll make brief appearance in Secret Wars. But I think by the end of the movie, Deadpool and Logan will be like, yeah, let's go to the MCU. And either Deadpool accidentally leaves Logan or Logan chooses to not go to the MCU. Like, either way, this movie ends with Deadpool in the MCU, but Logan stays because we need a new Wolverine for the MCU. And then I've got my free space. And then we have the Fox X-Men in comic accurate costumes. So this one should be a bit of a gimme, a bit of an obvious one. But I want to see, like, Patrick Stewart in that chair like they had him in Multiverse of Madness. I want to see Ian McKellen or Michael Fassbender, whichever one of them, in the classic Magneto costume. I want to see James Marsden or Ty Sheridan in the classic Cyclops costume. I want to see the classic costumes. I think we're going to. I think they are going to show up at some point in the movie as pruned versions or in a flashback to Wolverine's time, because he has the mention in the trailer of, like, they always wanted me to wear this suit, but I never could because I didn't want them to know I liked it, or whatever, I'm paraphrasing. But so with that line, I think, okay, we're going to see the Fox X-Men in their real suits. And with those Fox X-Men, also, like I said, I put Avengers cameo. Now, I'm not expecting the whole team to all show up and be there, but I'm expecting at least an Avenger or more, someone to acknowledge Deadpool's drop into the MCU and like, what in the world are you doing here? I'm not sure. They could also do some timey-wimey stuff. They could like have him drop into New York in 2012 Avengers and, he falls, in the revolving camera scene where it goes around all six of them and Wade gets plopped in the center of them. Could be a fun bit, but like I said, I'm expecting at least one Avenger to show up. All right, and then I've got classic and or wild Sentinels. This is because we've never seen the Sentinels like done properly in the movies. Days of Future Past, the Sentinels are interesting, but they don't look comic accurate, and they're a little clunky, like, they're Mach 1 prototypes almost. And so I'm expecting we're in the void where things have been pruned. There's gotta be a Sentinel in there, at least one, right? Like, even if it's just the wreckage of one, it would be fun to see. And then I also have the and/or Wild Sentinels. Wild Sentinels are from the comics, and essentially they are Sentinels who have repaired themselves using whatever technology they can find. They're like semi-sentient. They're kind of these Frankenstein Sentinels. And so I could see them doing a version of Wild Sentinels in the movie where it's like, oh, we're in the void and you build a Sentinel out of whatever you can find. This next one is a personal one, and that's John Hamm as Mr. Sinister. Either a reference, a cameo, anything. I know they probably won't. But if you don't know, on this channel I previously talked about how the X-Men movies did continue to seed Sinister into them, but they never quite got there. He never physically appeared in person. And in fact, he was supposed to be played by John Hamm in either a post-credit scene or a sequel to New Mutants, which never got filmed or made. So I would love, because Deadpool and Wolverine have both interacted with Sinister stuff, both in Deadpool 2 and in Logan, that, again, not expecting Sinister to show up and be the main villain of the movie, but like it'd be fun, some kind of reference, like even if it's just a poster in the background of Sinister and he looks like John Hamm. Something along those lines. And then I've got Cassandra Nova controls Alioth. Alioth is the big smoke creature in the void that we see that eats and destroys everything. And so I am predicting that at some point in the movie, if not right from the start, Cassandra is going to use her telepathy to literally control Alioth, and she uses him to wipe out any of her enemies in the void. Again, kind of a give me, but I wanted to throw it on here. Maybe another crazy one, but I've got X-Men Origins Deadpool versus our current Deadpool. Obviously, these are, if you don't know, in X-Men Origins, they had a version of Deadpool who was mute. He had his mouth stitched shut. He had all the different powers. You know, he was this kind of perfect mutant that Stryker had created that wasn't Deadpool, but they called it Deadpool. I'm not sure what they were thinking. But so part of me wonders if how can you not in this very meta movie about where we're going to the void, where things that aren't right or don't fit in get pruned and sent, how do you not have X-Men Origins Deadpool in there? This one is another one that's kind of already been given to us in the trailer, but I've got a Stan Lee or Rob Liefeld reference. Of course, Stan Lee, creator of Marvel Comics and the heroes we all know and love. And then Rob Liefeld is the creator of Deadpool. So I wouldn't be surprised. We've already seen there is a Liefeld joke in the trailer. I, again, won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get more Stan Lee and Rob Liefeld references in the movie. I'm not saying don't go throwing a CGI Stan Lee in there, even if, like, not even for a joke. Next up, I've got one that might be a little weird for people who don't know, but I've got Walker Scobell as Kidpool. This is obviously a variant of Deadpool that is a child. If you don't know, Walker Scobell currently plays Percy Jackson on the Percy Jackson Show on Disney+. And in a Netflix movie known as The Adam Project, Walker played a young version of Ryan Reynolds' character. And so I thought it would be fun if they somehow worked in to have Walker play Kidpool. I know that kid's getting old and big now, but they filmed this a while ago, so maybe there's a chance. This next one is a bit of a long shot, but I'm also thinking we might see MCU Wolverine, in that this is the new Wolverine that's been cast to play Wolverine in the upcoming MCU films. If we ever finally get that X-Men movie. I personally feel like this one's a long shot. I feel like it would have leaked. We would have gotten the Hollywood Reporter deadline, someone saying, blah, blah, blah has been cast as Wolverine in the MCU. But I could be wrong. Then I've got a would you prefer black leather joke. This one was actually stolen by X-Men 97, ironically enough. They just did this joke, where, the character gets handed the comic accurate bright blue and yellow costume, and then they say, like, oh, what is this? We going to a circus? And then Cyclops says, would you prefer black leather? And so I'm expecting a joke like that in this movie still, because they were produced around the same time. Like, unless they would cut it out, I can't see how they wouldn't resist making that joke, especially if my other prediction of the Fox X-Men and their comic accurate costumes comes true. This one was maybe a bit out of nowhere, a bit random, but I am expecting, because this is our goodbye to Hugh Jackman's Logan, that we will get some kind of joke. And I say this because I just rewatched the classic X-Men trilogy before this, and the Jean and Logan romance subplot is all over those movies. It doesn't work. It's bad. The love triangle with Logan, Jean, and Scott is always bad. It's especially bad in those movies, in my opinion. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Wade makes a joke about it at some point, especially if Jean shows up in the movie. And then last but not least, this one is a pretty obvious one. But this is Taylor Swift playing the mutant known as Dazzler. Do I believe this will happen? I'm not sure. I'm 50-50. It could go either way. Because if you don't know, Dazzler is a pop star, an X-Men, a mutant pop star. And so a lot of people have fan casted Taylor Swift as the character, including, and many people have pointed out that Taylor Swift is best friends with Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds' wife. So what better way to get your foot in the door? Taylor is actually friends with most of the cast of this movie. Hugh Jackman, the director Sean Levy, Ryan Reynolds himself, and Blake Lively. And so everyone who's worked on this movie has denied Taylor being in it. They've said, like, she's not in the movie. But again, as we've learned from Andrew Garfield in No Way Home, you never believe him until you see the movie. And so this one is a bit crazy, but also feels so obvious. that I don't know. I felt like putting it on the list, and I thought it would be a fun way to end my bingo card. So yeah, those are my predictions for Wolverine and Deadpool. Deadpool and Wolverine. Let me know your predictions down in the comments below. Like I said, maybe after the movie we'll come back here and see what I got wrong, what I got right, and we'll have a discussion about the movie overall. If you want to be here for that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when that one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.